Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for a bit of a different video this evening. It is going to be the transfer window review as such, and we're going to go over all the window, where we're at coming out the window, where we are in comparison to other teams coming out the window, and overall just in truth a review of the window. We obviously know Leeds United in this window had a big ambition to go for Strand Larsen. That was the key signing and that was the key sort of letdown throughout this window. We know they wanted that striker in. We know we wanted someone who could emulate the profile of a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but unfortunately the window's end, Strand Larsen is now a Crystal Palace player, and it looks like Leeds United, again, coming out of it, have kind of been left a bit in the dirt. Now, I've got to be honest, I've seen a lot of negativity online, loads of negativity tonight, and I mean, you can only just look at the reactions to the post that sort of the likes of Graham have put out, Berrin have put out, etc. It is extremely toxic in the Leeds fan base. However, I'm kind of not quite as frustrated as everybody else, I must admit. I saw this coming a long way off. We talked about it before going into the transfer window. Look, I don't want to come across here that I'm the know-it-all and that sort of stuff. This was guessed at the start of the window from me, but estimated guesses, but guesses fundamentally, and that's the way it's gone. And look, we've got a key player in. We've got Buonanotte in, and I don't think I want to take away from that, because I think had we signed Buonanotte on January today rather than when we did, I think they were much more sort of liking to the idea of a Buonanotte. So for me, it's not all negative. I want to look at the bigger picture. I want to look at the context of where Leeds United are at this moment in time. And the truth of the matter is we are in a good position. We've only got 15 games left now, or 14 games left, should I say. We've still got a lot of winnable home games left, and all this negativity about sort of Leeds United definitely getting relegated, I will not get on board with. I will back this team until the fine end, and I will back this team till the bitter end. And if we do get relegated, that's what happens, and we know we're there in the Championship. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I think that sort of this ridiculous negativity about the fact that if we'd have signed one extra player today or two extra players, that means we'd have guaranteed safety, and because we've lost a few, because we haven't done that means we're guaranteed relegation because we haven't spent £2 million on a left back from the Bundesliga like Forest have. I'm not buying into that nonsense. I don't buy into it. I think it's reactionary. I don't think it's sensible. And I think if you look back at January transfer windows in the past for Leeds United, as I said, the worst season we have had in the last probably 5 years was the season we did the most in the January transfer window. So does a January transfer window end your pursuit of sort of staying in this division? Absolutely not. And for me, as I said, look, I say what I think on this channel. That's what we always do. I remember a few months ago when we were going on about Daniel Farke, a lot of the comments and a lot of the publicity online was about the fact that, look, Daniel Farke should be sacked. We on this channel went against it. I said on this channel, I don't think he should be sacked. And I'd like to think so far I've been on the right side of history with that. As I said, this is not a me coming across like I know it all. I absolutely do not. You guys know that I'm willing to put my hands up when I get stuff wrong, and I've got a lot wrong this season. But I just don't buy into this. I just don't buy into it. And I've listened to a lot of people talk today. I've sort of consumed a lot of content. As I said, I've been off today, so naturally I've been able to do that, fortunately. And I am a bit sick, to be honest, of the negativity, and I'm a bit sick of the fact that I've got people telling me that apparently on Friday it's going to be really toxic in the ground. Is it an absolute nonsense? Nonsense. It'll be toxic in the ground if we get beat, no doubt about it. But that'll be because we got beat, not because we didn't buy an extra player on deadline day. If we're being totally honest, I think we need to calm down a bit. But as I said, that's my opinion. I want to get into your comments. Also, as well, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm probably going to need support on this video because I imagine the comments are probably not going to be on my side. But you know, that's what we do. We put our heads above the parapet and we sort of say what we think. That's kind of how it works. Obviously, naturally, like I always say, we accept all opinions on this channel. But that's kind of where I am. I hope you guys can accept it as well to where you're at. As I said, we'll get into more, and I want to get into more detail. As I said, I want this video to be it's probably going to be a long one. We're going to get into Buonanotte. We're going to get into, as I said, everything about the sort of the window and where this leaves us fundamentally. And do I sort of think we're going to stay up based on what we've done? And do I think that the 49ers have failed us in the window? Obviously, that's part of the title and all this, which we will get into, of course. But as I said, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help the channel. It really, really does. But yeah, let's get into some of your comments, and then I'll get into a few more stuff that sort of where I'm at, kind of at with it. Josh says, "Evening, no deal sheets according to Graham." Yeah, there was a report going around the Daily Mail apparently that we were a deal sheeting for Spurtzan, and there was obviously talk earlier in the day. We covered it on the channel about Spurtzan. I never really saw it happening. In truth, it wasn't my feeling regarding that. I didn't think that was going to happen, and I didn't think it was the player we needed. In truth, but yeah. Anyway, that's the kind of message on that. Another poor transfer window, deals to be had and loans slots not even filled, says Matthew. Yeah, look, when we talk about sort of when I did that sort of initial dialogue at the start of this video, I don't think we've had a good transfer window. I don't think we have. But I'm not just talking about the transfer window. I'm talking about context as to where we are. And I'm responding to the comments that we've seen all online today about the fact that we're definitely relegated based on this transfer window. And I've got to be honest, in the summer transfer window, I fell into the trap a bit. I went down the opinion of absolutely not enough. And that was where my head was at the moment. And I'm conscious I don't want to fall into that trap again, because truthfully, that if you'd have told me coming out of January that we'd be 6 points outside the relegation zone at the end of the summer transfer window, I'd have told you you're having a laugh. That's where I was at. I thought we probably were going to get relegated, but we're not. That's not where we're at. And I think the 49ers have got a lot of the signings right. And I want to get some of this. I want to get some of this stuff across, because especially when we talk about recruitment, I think I've seen all on Twitter today as well. Maybe I think part of it, I've probably based a lot of this off sort of what social media's been saying, and that's probably not always the best spectrum of where the Leeds fans are at as truth. But I've seen a lot of hate for people like Adam Underwood. Now, I don't know if people understand the role of Adam Underwood, but he's our sporting director, so he basically picks players that he thinks would be good for Leeds United. He doesn't control the accounts. He doesn't massively control. All right, he's got an input if he should sell players or not, but he doesn't. He doesn't do the finances of the thing. That's down to Robbie Evans and Parag. And I've seen him getting today Blunderwood and all these sort of terms about him. And I'm thinking, well, actually, his job is selecting players and bringing players into the football club that he thinks are beneficial. And if you look through our signings that he's made, if we're being totally honest, and by the way, as I said, this is the guy that I did not defend in the summer. I was quite gunning for. But actually, if you look at the signings we made this transfer window, the Buonanotte deal, and the signings we made this summer, I think we've all said they're pretty good signings. So how can he be such a bad operator and such bad recruitment if a lot of the signings that we brought in have been good signings? That's his job. He didn't write the checks. That's not his job. That's down. If you want to start blaming the checks, you can talk about Parag and you can talk about sort of Robbie Evans. That's fine. We can have a conversation about that. But I think this target of Underwood, I just don't agree with. Which signings? Look, you're not going to get every signing right, but we're not having windows where we're getting like all of them wrong. Like if you look at the summer signings, we bought Stacking, we've bought Beal in, we brought James Justin in, we brought Goodmanson in. All these players that we brought in, are we saying DCL, Nemecha, to be honest, even on a free? Are we saying that all these players have been really bad players? No, of course we're not. We've all said that these have been really good signings. So I don't know. I'm a bit I just disagree on this this scapegoating of Adam Underwood as like our sporting director, when actually the recruitment that he's made for me has been pretty good so far. And I want to judge. I don't want to judge him based on anything else really. That's kind of his job, isn't it? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Just listening to some of the stuff today. It's just as you can tell, maybe I'm a bit frustrated because I just don't feel like I'm at that opinion. But that's, as I said, people are open to their opinions, and maybe I'm going to be on the wrong side of this one if we do get relegated. But look, and as I said, we will base it on results. If Leeds United if DCL goes down injured and the risk fundamentally, which is what we made, doesn't work, then look, we can reassess in the summer and talk about where we've gone wrong, and we're more than happy to do that, as you guys know we will on this channel. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite as strong with it. I just really am not. Josh says, risky game. Not as mad as it paid off last year, January. Disappointing that Fark publicly said he wanted a keeper and he doesn't get one. Yeah, I know what you mean by that. I think that's fair. Watching another channel earlier, unbelievable. I wanted someone in, but not that bad. I think we would have been different if we hadn't just played Arsenal. Yeah, I know. I think obviously the result hasn't helped us. I do think that the results obviously put a bit of a down on the whole situation, but we were playing Arsenal. And obviously context has to be naturally applied with that. Sebastian says, let's hope Facundo is making the difference. Let's see him starting against Forest. Yeah, look, I think Facundo, I do think he'll make a really good impact on this Leeds United team. I wanted him in the summer. You guys will have seen the videos in the summer when we talked about him. I think he fits the profile down to a T. I like the fact that we've brought a left footer in. We don't really have any left footers or many left footers in the team at all. So I quite like the fact we've got someone who can play on the right hand side, cut inside, and see that killer pass. I thought we were missing that in the summer. I really did. So I think it's a good signing. I do, and I think it's been wildly underrated because it hasn't come when people maybe wanted it to come. But that's my feeling. Josh says we're 6 points clear with the team, and we've got currently West Ham. And West Ham have panic bought and now expected to be a super team. Makes no sense. We'll be fine. Look, I'm not probably as strong with you. I'm still worried about relegation. I probably will be until the final whistle or until we're mathematically safe, because that's the life of a football fan, I guess. But I don't think we're now instantly down. I'm not tweeting out saying we're getting relegated. I think that's far down the line. A conversation definitely not for today. After Spurs and West Ham fans moaning about two players in, yeah, well, exactly, and I think that's contextual. Look, the thing is, I saw a post today where a journalist had put out a post basically saying, are you happy with your club's transfer window? And do you know what the result was? 19% were happy with their club's transfer window. Do you know what that tells you? It tells you that we're never happy as fans, and we're not, because we always want more for our club and we always want the best. And look, you can talk about sort of West Ham buying these players and sort of Forest buying the players that they've bought today and obviously over the transfer window. But you can look at this is not just me sort of lying to you guys. You can look at their hashtags and see what their fans are thinking about the situations they're in. Both of them are saying very negative. Like West Ham, you've got sack the board sort of trending on social media all the way around, and they think they're useless. Forest think that they're panicking and it's an absolute mess as well at their club. So everyone's thinking this. We're not on our own with this one. We're really not. No one's ever happy with their own transfer window. Very rarely, anyway. James and BL back Friday, says Arthur. I hope BL's back. I'm not sure he will be, though, from what we heard. Even in Scott, not ideal today, but I think we're still in a strong position. Yeah, look, that's where we're at. Like, one thing I want to say with this as well is, because I know where people are going to see this probably coming from. I don't think we've had a good transfer window. I honestly don't. I think if you look at sort of what other teams have done, it has been better. And look, part of what I want to do tonight is I want to talk about the negatives that I think we've probably done in the transfer window. And there's part of the transfer window that's kind of frustrated me, which I will talk about. I just don't want to also go down the side of like we're just complete negativity and we're definitely relegated. I just think that's a pointless argument, and let's just see now. Let's just see where we're going to be at. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I think we're just jumping the gun with all that sort of stuff personally. James will be like a new signing. Yes, he will. Harry Gray getting brilliant views. Yeah, he's doing well at Rotherham. I think he scored 2 goals now. You can only judge the window at the end of the season, so fingers crossed. We need to win 4 more home games. I expect. Yeah, I think so, mate. I think so. Sly says masterful window, presumably that's slight sarcasm. Blades have 5 RX players, Law says Gavin. Yeah, I know, mate. It's funny that, isn't it? They've signed Calvin Phillips, Shackleton, Hielde, Bamford, of course, and there's another one as well. I can't remember. But yeah, they are. It's ridiculous. Sunderland won Burnley 0. Is that already? Blimey, that's quick. That is quick. My problem is with the lack of depth right now at centre-back, full-back and striker. I back the team to stay up, but one more injury and we could be in trouble. Yeah, that's a fair point, Matt. It's a fair point. Sunderland spent another 17.25 million. They have. The issue is, Jason, is that they're just in a different PSR climate to us, mate. They didn't spend anywhere near as much money over the 2 seasons previous to this season. So it's hard to compare them to them because they're in a complete different PSR complexion. And I do believe, honestly, that this ownership would have spent more money had the PSR allowed them to. And I do want to have a conversation about PSR because I do feel like we are just getting absolutely ransacked at this moment in time. And I just don't feel like I say it enough. I don't want to look at, as I said, I don't want to take, I think we can do things better in the transfer. And I said, we'll talk, and I'm more than happy to discuss that. And I think there's fair comments that have come in already tonight, in my opinion, about sort of where we're at. But I do want to say that this PSR stuff is doing my absolute head in, and we don't get it talked about enough. Like, the rules are an absolute joke, if I'm being totally honest. The fact that we can probably spend about just shy of £100 million when we're a newly promoted club to try compete in this division, and they've actually in the summer made it so you can have spent less money this season than the newly promoted clubs can compared to the rest of the league is an absolute joke, and it doesn't get talked about enough. They're basically trying to get you relegated to ensure that they keep the same 17 teams over and over in the Premier League so they can just keep gaining more and more money, and it don't get talked about enough, but it's an absolute disgrace, really. And it annoys me that we sort of go at sort of our club and the recruitment team and all this, when I think part of the responsibility and part of the blame should be at the Premier League for allowing these rules to come in that are just completely making it so difficult to stay in the league. Like, if we stay up, the recruitment team will have done a fantastic job with the amount of resources and the amount of money we're allowed to spend. Like, in the summer, we're now competing with a Forest team who spent £200 million in the summer, having already finished 7th in the Premier League last season, and we're annoyed because we're level on points with them. And they spent 200 million, and they've just spent more than us in the January transfer window as well than we have. How can that be right? How can that possibly be right? And you've got to do an unbelievable job to stay in the league because of the way PSR set up. And as I said, I hear so much negativity about this and that, about how the club's being run and all this. And then we don't hear anything about PSR. Why do Leeds fans not talk about that? Why do we not talk about that? I think we should be talking about it more. Yes, those toxic fans need to calm down, but I think the 49ers have let Fark down for me in the January transfer window, and partially too in the summer window last year, but Fark's doing great with what he's got. I agree. Look, it's tricky, and I think one thing, if we want to get onto a few negatives now, I don't think this club sell well enough. I thought they sold well in the season when we didn't get promoted. I thought we got good fees for Rutter. I thought we got good fee for Gray. Obviously, there was nothing we could do about sort of the Somerville one. He had a release clause, actually, so did Rutter. And I thought we got decent money for Kamara. And I thought, actually, that's something we play trade really well. I don't think we've sold well enough since that point, though. I don't think we sold well in the summer, and I don't think we sold well in the January. In truth, Perot should have been sold in this window, shouldn't he? If we're being honest here, and I've given a lot of praise to him, and I've not been that negative, but the sales have not been good enough, have they? They haven't. I mean, as I said, there is no way that at the end of the window, Perot should be at the football club. I know we've been in a position that makes it tricky, where obviously he doesn't want to leave, and he wants to stay, and I think that obviously makes it naturally more tricky. But in the same breath, I still think they could have done a better job of moving a few players on who were not who were sort of not as useful in this squad, and bringing players in that could have been more useful, because I understand where people are coming from a bit about PSR, and obviously I know I've gone a bit of a rant about PSR there, but I do get it in terms of if we sell more players, we can bring more players in that suit the profile, and that's probably what Leeds United should have looked at. Like, Leeds United really should have got something like 10 to 15 million pound for Pro in this January transfer window, and they should have brought a striker in probably for that fee, who would have fit the profile better. They should have done that. They should have done that. Wolves, Burnley are down for me. Yeah, I agree, Arthur. I think they're down. Leeds can't afford to get relegated. No club can afford to get relegated, Jason, but I get your point. It would be an absolute mess if we do. Sunderland have also sold that guy who scored against us. His only goal. Yeah, Adingra. He's only gone on loan, mate, but yeah. I know it shows how bad we are. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Forest were turned down for about 6 or 7 signs. I know, and I do feel like if that were Leeds, we'd be going, oh, it's so panicky, and look at the other club not panicking. I don't know. Realistic, we're going to get 12 points minimum from now to the end of the season. That would mean West Ham would need 19 points. That's why I'm so confident. And I think that's fair. Pathetic, shocking window. Right, what would you have done differently then, mate? How would you have got round this PFR thing? Would you have broke the rules? Possibly in number one. Would you have sold better? And if you would have, who would have sold? Because there's not much I can do with that comment other than sort of bring it to the chat. I expect Leeds United only targeted Tran Larson when Buonanotte became available. Leeds United went for him as they tried to get him in the summer. Yeah, that's right. I thought they wouldn't do anything in the window, and that's not good enough. They should be doing stuff, but I thought that would be the case. Okay, that's one's take. Or another take is, for the last year and a half, Fark has been asking for reinforcement and the squad strengthening. The board has failed to deliver that. That's true, James, and I agree with you, but doesn't every manager ask for recruitments? That's what they do in it. The managers ask and ask and ask, and the board manage the finances behind the scenes. The manager manage the finances. So it's easy for Fark to come out and say that we want to bring this player in, that player in, and that's all fantastic, and I agree with you. And I do think he's got a hard job. I don't think the squad's littered with quality. And I think when we can't run over teams and use our physicality, like we saw against Arsenal, we just get absolutely picked off because we don't have a skill set there that allows us to better play when people can overpower us, or at least match us on a physical basis. But we have recruited for a style that is working. Perfect Bull to be upset with the window, says James. I agree. I think that's fair. I don't think it's a good window, mate. It's just I can also understand the position that they're in going into the window, because I don't know. I think it's tricky when you've got PSR so far like ridged in you. which is what we've got. Like if we were at the end of the season, we're in a situation where we could have spent £150 million, and that was our PSR wiggle room, and we only spent 100 million. And we didn't spend an extra 50 million to help us stay in the league, I'd be coming on here going, what on earth are the club doing? We've got this wiggle room. We didn't do it. We sort of gambled, and now we're relegated. What a stupid thing to do. But I can understand it a bit more because they are maxing out the PSR, and the Strand Larsen signing, if that would have happened, would have come out of next year's budget. Gavin says Rothwell. Not sure what you mean there. I know he's moved on it to Sheffield United. Oh yeah, that's what you mean. Not easy to grow up as a Leeds fan. No, it won't, mate. Truth. Leeds United are not an established Premier League club. Until Leeds United survive a few years in the Prem and build their profile and financial strength, it will be difficult to attract the likes of Strand Larsen. Yeah, true, but I think we did actually attract him. Give the lad a like. He's talking sense, says Golden Boy. Thank you very much, mate. And he said if you could help the channel by doing that, that would be fantastic. I don't think people will like this video today. I know. Usually, probably, look, I always say what I think in a roundabout way. I always listen to you guys, but I always say what I think. And I know coming on tonight that people are not going to agree massively with my opinion, and that's fine. But if you do agree, if you could help me out by dropping a like, that would be helpful, because I don't think I'm going to get loads of them. Wharton says, honest question, but how do we offer 40 million for Strand Larsen, but then also don't have money? We offered Strand Larsen was an opportunity where they went, we were going to do a signing like this in the summer, and we're not going to do that signing in the summer. We're going to bring it forward. So basically, if you think in the summer we might have, if we stay in the league, we might have 120 million say to spend. So we had 120 million to spend in the summer, and we went, right, let's move that forward. Let's move 40 million of that forward to this year. And then we'll buy Strand Larsen this year for 40 million quid. And then in the summer, rather than having 120 million to spend, we'll have only 80 million to spend, because we would have bought Strand Larsen in the summer. And one of the reasons why they wanted to do that was because in the summer, it would be much more difficult to get Strand Larsen, because if he has a good second half of the season, a lot of clubs will be after him. And that's why they tried to move it forward. And maybe he could have gone for less in the summer as well, which again would have invited more clubs and made it more difficult. Whereas Leeds saw an opportunity in Strand Larsen to bring in a player that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do in the summer in January instead, with a structured deal that probably didn't expect to be available. But it was available based on how Wolves have performed, which again, none of it would have expected that by Christmas Wolves would already be relegated. But that's that position they found itself in. So that's kind of why. But I know what you mean. I can't get away from the fact that I do feel like they should have moved Perot out and they should have brought somebody in. I'm not saying an absolute world beater, but somebody in who represents the way that we're trying to play a bit better and would have suited the style more. That's what they should have done, in my opinion. Forrest wanted a Celtic player, scored 3 goals in his last 3 games. Are you about angles? I think you are. Forrest line Luca Nets for 2 million. PSR question mark. More like sleeping when a good attainable opportunities are available. Right, let's talk about this Luca Nets thing, because I did want to discuss this. And this is where I'm more with you, mate, and I understand what your point is. I think we've got a problem a bit at the football club sometimes with signings. And as I said, I understand a bit where we're at, but I think we've got a problem sometimes where we're so obsessed with getting the exact player we want that we don't see so when we go, when it's an opportunity in the market, you'd think that we'd have quite a wide field and we'd go, all right, well, he's not perfect, but he's an opportunity that we could get, and he's on a really cheap fee. And I think he's not the exact player they wanted, so they didn't go for it. Whereas I think they should open or expand what they want, so it's a bit wider. And if an opportunity like that comes in the market, they should have gone for it. And I think the same with Ortega in goal. I think them two, you can't really throw the PSR argument at it. So all you can say is that it wasn't a player that they liked enough to go for it. Well, I think they should have done it regardless. So I do agree with you on that. I think that's fair. Going and spending 40 million on Larsen and then bringing nobody in his madness. We're going down. Based on what? Based on what? Sorry, I'm going to be behind chats here. I have to skip through some of them because it's pushed me down naturally. This is a massive letdown for me, and it's the third January transfer window that the 49ers have risked our Premier League status. Fair enough. Pro needs to go to Blades. Bambi and Phillips away. Inters Koba. Yeah, I agree. I don't think Leeds do push the PSR quite enough. Training ground sponsor, sell the ladies team, etc. Our ladies team's not worth anything, mate. We don't have unfortunately, until Rad Rosani came to the football club, we didn't have a ladies team. So our ladies team's in like such a low level that we can't sell it. We just can't sell it. The goalkeeper situation is a bit worrying. Perry apparently not in a Farke signing, but Farke would have had no choice to sign off on Perry because otherwise he would have been shot in that position. Yeah, potentially. But I think Perry was obviously a mistake. That was a bad signing. But as I said, clubs make bad signings. The success rate on transfers is awful, by the way, in terms of like not just Leeds United, in terms of everywhere. A lot of transfers don't hit. So if you can get something like an 80% hit rate on your transfers, you're doing a really good job. And I think that's where since the 49ers have come to the football club, I think that's where they are at, probably around the sort of 70 to 80% hit rate. And it's pretty good going, that, to be honest. I hope it doesn't hurt us late in the season. I hope so, mate, because if Calvert-Lewin does go down injured or has a really bad set of form and he's absolutely awful for a long time, if that's the case, then and we go at the end of the season and Calvert-Lewin's missed loads of chances or just missed loads of games, and we just missed out on staying in the league, you could probably have gone, well, if we'd have brought a striker in, he probably would have scored the goals to keep us in the league. And I hope that doesn't happen, because that will be a mess then if it does. And I can agree with you on that. Put Cairns in goal for Friday night. I think we'll leave that one, Arthur, but it's up to you. I feel bad for the idiot saying he has a strong contact at LUFC who said we're definitely getting 2 players. I know who you mentioned there, mate, but he's actually a nice guy, he's my. But yeah, look, as I said, I think I don't really know. I don't know anything about it really other than that. Forest went for a 25 million player. Celtic paid 11 million for. They sound desperate. Yeah, so that's the other side. Just of light, says Philip. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Interesting. Cheers. Did the window close yet? Yeah, it's closed, mate. It has closed. There's always ways, always room to improve. Not only window open in the summer. Yeah, the window is in the summer. 49ers not vesting in the club. Categorically not true. They've spent a lot of money. I don't think the players. I don't think players want to live in Leeds. I don't think we've got a huge problem. I think in the summer we had a pretty of an issue with attracting players, but that's obviously because we're a newly promoted club. And truthfully, players looking at Leeds United thought we were going to go down, and because newly promoted clubs in previous years have just continually gone down. Because the 2 years previous, all 6 clubs had been relegated from the Premier League. So if you're a player going at Leeds United in the summer, you're going, well, the last 6 of your lot got relegated, so you're probably going to go down, so I don't want to join your lot. And that's struggling. But if we stay up this year, I don't think we'll have a huge issue with that. And I don't think people have an issue living in Leeds either. For the record, I think Leeds is quite a nice city. I will be going next weekend. I know we play on Friday, but I'm going out in Leeds. I'm worried about how this is going into the season. I'm not sure what you mean there. It's a risk spending over PSR as trying to recruit before June 30th might mean us losing some crown jewels at a panic price. That said, I've still got a number 9 and perhaps a backup on loan. Yeah, I agree, Andy. I think that's fair. I think Strand Larsen will be a flop at Palace. There's still a lot of toxicity there. A lot of fans need a reality check. We could end up living in the Ridsdale dream for 18 years plus the rules. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, mate. 49ers want to do it on the cheap. Work on yourself, Nemetra, Calvert-Lewin, cost 0. Let's just call this what it is. It's a corporate raid while we're all agonised over comings and goings. The 49ers are here to root us for profit, period. Look, the 49ers, in truth, Cobra, and I think this is a fair point, the 49ers want to sell us at some point. Their plan is to buy us in the Championship and they bought us for something like 150 million quid. And they're going to want to sell us for about £1 billion. That's their plan. That's their big plan. So basically, what they want to do is buy the club on the cheap, put a load of money into the football club, build a new stadium, have a team that's solid in the Premier League, and then the club's worth £1 billion and they can sell it, having put maybe 600 million in and make a nice little profit. Because if you put 600 million into something, pay 150 million quid, you've spent 750 million. Then if you sell that club for £1 billion or even more, you make at least 250 million quid. And that's their plan. Their investment, it's an investment firm to try and make money out of the football club. That's their plan. The benefit we've got with the 49ers and Leeds United at the moment is we want the same thing. So for them to get that £1 billion, they need Leeds United to be successful and in the Premier League, because they won't get that in the Championship. So actually, as much as they're an investment firm and they don't really care about Leeds United, which I don't think they do, their aim is the same as ours, which is for Leeds United to be successful on the pitch and to have a brand new and to have an upgraded stadium that looks fantastic and it's got 50,000 seats. I think that's what we all want, and we all want a team that's playing really well in the Premier League, and that's what the 49ers are trying to achieve. But it will get to a point when we're at a point where we're hopefully secure in the Premier League, doing well, they've made that profit, and then they're looking to sell us. And at that point, they'll probably stop spending money because they'll think, well, we're trying to sell this property, this company now, and that's where it'll go. But that's the plan. That's the big plan. Is that's what they want to do. They're an investment firm. They see Leeds United as something that they can make money on, which they can do because Leeds United have a massive. We are a massive football club, and if you can get Leeds United going back in the right direction, we have got a fan base that's ridiculous. We are a one club city. There is a lot of potential in this football club to make a lot of money on if you run it right and upgrade the facilities and get a team that's in the Premier League year on year and maybe pushing Europe. If all that's in place, you'll get easy £1 billion for the football club, and that's the plan. But that is the same plan as us. So anyone saying, I've seen online today, the 49ers want us to go down, absolute nonsense. They're an investment firm. They want to make as much money as possible. They're not going to make money if we're in the Championship, lads. Tristan says, I totally agree. You're probably the first person I've heard have a mature view on the window. I do believe, regardless if we got transfers done this window or not, it's the Forest match that'll decide. Yeah, well, that's more important than the window, fundamentally, anyway. Strand last 50 million, no way. Yeah, it was too expensive, mate. It was too expensive. Anything in your life should always try and improve, and a business should always be done like that. 49ers out. Okay. Look at the money Leeds were prepared to pay for Munoz, Pajau. Haven't set the season alight for their representative clubs. Who's to say that Sean Larson will live up to Sean's fee? Well, true, mate. True. You're missing my point slightly. The 49ers stand to lose a ton of money if we go down for the Poultry investment right now. I understand what you're saying. No, I know what you're saying. They just don't want to break, because their issue is if we break financial rules, we'll get a points deduction, and then next year it'll be really hard to stay in the league with a points deduction. So we can't take a points deduction on board. So there might be a situation where it wouldn't be ideal to spend money now because long term it'd really hurt us. We have shown we can mix with the best, so there's hope. I wish we could be more consistent, says Mr. Whitesnake. We have been pretty consistent though, mate. I mean, we've only lost 2 in 12. I think that's pretty consistent. If we spend 50 to 100 million now, we stay up, compete in minor comps, earn the 49ers a shed load more on their investment. True, but we also, if we spend 50 to 100, 80 million now, we won't be able to recoup that money, so we'll break FFP rules, and then next year we'll have a sanction for that. Danny says, smash a like and subscribe. Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It massively helps the channel. So if you could help the channel by doing that, it would be brilliant. It really would be. Anyway, well, you're talking rubbish. This team is crap. They should have bought Larson. Nice one, Matt. Nice. How much would you have paid? 100 million? Quality. Right. Let me have a look. Some of the things that I thought about this window as well. Let's have a look. I've got some notes. You see. Yeah, but Sunderland spent 200 mil and they will spend another 200 million next season. That's an ambitious club. You see, this is your problem, mate. This is kind of your issue because they're in a different complexion. They can afford to do that and not break financial because not this next year is a 1 year cycle, but this year we are in a 3 year at the end of the 3 year period. So I'll explain this now, so hopefully you'll understand. So in the 2 years the PSR rules work where it's over a 3 year period. You'll probably heard this before. So we're on the 3rd year now of a PSR cycle. So we had the first year we got relegated, this year we got promoted last season, and then this season. Now, in them times, we lost a shed load of money while we we're in the Championship trying to get promoted. A shed load of money. We nearly actually broke the rules the year we sold Archie Gray right at the end. But we lost a shed load of money, which meant when we got promoted, we couldn't spend what Sunderland could spend because they didn't lose a shed load of money, and they were running a much more financially secure way while in the Championship because they didn't have the biggest wage bill in Championship history like we had last season. So because of that, it meant when they came up, their gap between how much they could spend and ours, because of how much they lost in the Championship compared to us, was much greater. So we lost so much more than they did, so we couldn't lose as much this year. Whereas they're in the opposite boat. They didn't lose hardly anything in the Championship, which means when they get promoted, they can spend much more than us, which is why they can spend that. If the 49ers could spend 200 million, they would have done, but they couldn't spend it because they would break PSR. That's the difference. But Scott, Red Bull are a minority investor in the club. Who's to say they won't buy the club? as majority owners like Red Bull, Leipzig, Salzburg, and build these clubs to RB Leeds United? Nothing, mate. I mean, the 49ers might sell to Red Bull. I know they said they won't. They might do. And we might turn into Red Bull Leeds. And if we do, I don't think I'll be able to run the channel anymore, in truth. If we give the club the money, it's going to cost us on therapy. We could buy a few new players ourselves. Larson for 40 million was about 20 million more than he's worth. I disagree with that. I do think he's worth 40. I don't think he's worth any more. Sunderland also sold players e.g. Bellingham and Tommy Watson, so they avoided PSR. Agreed. Yep, that's exactly right. I should have said that as well. You're right. Should have outbid Palace. Come on, Leeds. Should have got that. Are you trying to troll? I don't know. Sunderland haven't had PSR restrictions. They've been down for so long. Yeah, well, that's part of it. So we had, obviously, when we got relegated, we had parachute payments to help us with our losses, which was, I think it's 50 million first year, 42 second year, and something like 20 third year, something like that. They didn't have that, so we could lose that money, but they couldn't lose it. So in our books, it looks worse kind of because of that. But yeah. Anyway, let's have a conversation about where we're at now. So we've come out the transfer window. Has anyone known? Have West Ham signed this? Have West Ham signed Dazarsi? Let's have a look. Have West Ham signed Dazarsi? Not yet, but he might do. Is it off? Well, I think we're not in a bad position still, and I said going into the window that that we would have a worse window than everybody just because of where we were PSR wise. I don't think it's been the end of the world though. I don't think the signs that people have made have been that bad, if I'm being honest. I don't think we're in an awful position. I think West Ham are going to be better second half of the season. I've said it all along. And I do think, although Pablo and Castellanos don't look like brilliant footballs, it's allowed Bowen and Somerville to be much more freer and much better. That's what it's allowed. So, and I think that'll be a net positive on West Ham, and I think you're seeing the benefit of that right now. So I think they will be better. The question will be, are they going to be 6 points better than us between now and the end of the season? And that's going to be tricky, because obviously with our goal difference, it's basically 7 as well. And I think, as I said, I still think we're in a decent spot. I think that them obviously conceding right at the end against Chelsea as well is massive confidence-wise. They have got they've got trickier games than us. Me and my mate were going through it before I did this show, and I think they've got 14 games left, and I'd say 8 of them are pretty bad. 8 of them we're talking like Man United at home. I think they've still got Arsenal to play. They've still got Villa away to play. They've got quite a few tricky games left. Suddenly 2-0 up against Burnley. Yeah. So I still think we're in a decent spot, and look, we'll see at the end of the window fundamentally where we are. But I don't think we're in the worst situation in the world. It's your opinion that we should have got Strand Larson. Fair enough. You're probably in the minority, mate. But as I said, if that's your opinion, then fair enough. The Red Bull shareholding gives them voting rights for future purchases. The writing is on the wall. Look, I don't want Red Bull Leeds, and I'll be if that ever happened, which I don't actually think it will do, to be honest. But if that was to ever happen and we got called Red Bull Leeds, there would be a mass protest outside Ellen Road, and I will be in that protest, no doubt about it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys will as well. I can't think of anything worse than that. I think that would be our identity of our football club gone. I didn't think we'd talk about this tonight, but yeah. Surely Sunderland will have PSR restrictions at some point, though. They will. But unfortunately for our sakes, Jason, it's changing this summer. So this summer, it's going from PSR to a thing called SCR, which runs on a 1-year cycle rather than a 3-year cycle. So it'll be slightly different for them. Plus, Sunderland sold Bellingham for 32 million. We've read that. All dealer sheet gone in for Disasi, right? Okay. Burnley are down low. Yeah, they're rubbish. They are rubbish. In my opinion, Fark is clearly frustrated with the recruitment. Hence, he was publicly said the 49ers know what E/Fark wants from the transfer window, e.g. big striker goalkeeper at least. Yeah, look, it's a tricky situation though, and obviously Fark is the manager of the club and he wants as many good signs as possible for the club, of course he does. But in the same breath, the finances of the club are not really his responsibility, so it's a bit tricky really. He's always like, look at Glasner, he's going on and on all the time about sort of new players, and managers want as many new players as they can get because they want the best team possible to make their job as easy as possible, but it's not always how it works. Red Bull is most 20% share sponsors because of the shirt. Okay, I honestly couldn't care less about RB Leeds. It'll always be Leeds United to me. If they make Leeds a top team, so be it. That's what I want. Leeds as a success. I couldn't disagree more. I'd rather Leeds United be in League One than be called RB Leeds. It's just something that I'm passionately against. I can't think of anything worse than changing our name to RB Leeds. I mean, ugh, that makes me want to throw up. So as I said, and I think there'll be a lot of fans that feel like that. I might be wrong, but I feel there'll be a lot of fans that feel like that. And I think there will be mass protests if we got called RB Leeds. But I mean, I'm surprised we'll talk about this. But yeah. Tottenham and Palace have very difficult matches to come. Yeah, they do. Playing 5D chess, making Palace overpay for Strand Larsen. Exactly, Sly. You got the feeling there. Thank God we've got fight. That gives me confidence. Fair enough. Leeds have got the Red Bull logo on the shirt. They have, but we're not called RB Leeds. I think that's where I draw the line. West Ham just need to gain 4 points to us by the last game. If we're already 2 points in the last game, going into London, it will be a loss. Yeah, maybe. But look, I don't want to go into that last game, I must admit. And I think if you asked a West Ham fan right now, would you take going into that last game obviously ahead of the relegation zone? They're obviously going to say yes. I don't want that to happen because I worry like hell about that. Although we have been in this position before and we did beat Brentford on the final day, but I don't want to go into that. I do not want to go into that West Ham game needing a win. What is your prediction for Leeds Forest on Friday? I think we'll beat Forest on Friday. I do. We've got an unbelievable record for night games. And I do think Ellen Road is absolutely bounced at night. And I also have watched Forest quite a bit recently. And I actually thought they were all right against Palace. But a lot of the games, even when they've picked up good results, like even the Brentford game where they won, they've actually been pretty crap, if I'm being honest. And I think they've run a bit like a basket case, if I'm being honest. So I do think we might win on Friday. And I think if we win on Friday, look, we'll be on 29 points. And then we'll need 11 points with 13 games to go to get to 40, and I think you'd back us to do that. I do. I think it's a huge game. I think this game, look, we'll talk about all this in the rest of the week, and obviously we've got shows to film now that are not just going to be about transfer shows, and it'd be nice because we can get into some more comments that are not just transfers. So definitely stick around for it while we do stuff like that. But yeah, I do. I think that this weekend will be a big swinger week. We've obviously got Forest. West Ham play against Burnley. Big games then. Big games. Red Bull look clean on the shirt, and that's where they should stay. Stay away from Leeds, God will. Yeah, agreed. We play West Ham on the last day of the season and stay up on goal difference by 2 goals. Yeah, mate, that'd be... If we stay up on goal difference in the last day, then... I don't really care. I'll take staying up all day long. Pick up on the 4 wins up, we should be okay, says Roger. Yeah. Andy says, as always, how we handle the pressure is key. That's why Forest match is important. Much easier to play games with a buffer. It is. You're right. You are right. Evening, pal. Sorry I'm late. Really disappointed we have signed nobody today. As much as I rated Underwood in the summer with some of his signings, the fact nobody's signed today is inept. So, like, again, I said this earlier, Ollie, and nice to see you in the chat, by the way, mate. But it's not really... Underwood's job is to identify targets, and that's his job. He might have been giving loads of names to sort of Parag and Fark, and they might have been saying no. It's tricky because he's not really in charge of the financial side. That's more... Robbie Evans would more make them decisions, sign off on the signings, as would Parag. He would just identify targets. So we don't know who he's identified, really. So it's tricky, that. Bullen says, good. Fair enough. Michael, certain players recruited were not Fark's choice, e.g. Large, Schmidt, who Fark never really gave much game time and were quickly loaned out. The 49ers recruitment Fark telling the board, yeah, potentially. Where's the 4 wins coming from? I'd love to know. We struggle to hold on to Leeds. Right, we have got left, mate. Forest at home, Sunderland at home, who, by the way, are absolutely horrendous away from home. And the fact that they lost against West Ham is a proof to that. Brentford at home, we've got Brighton at home, we've got Wolves at home, we've got Burnley at home. I see 6 really winnable games there, mate. And I don't know exactly which ones of them 6 we're going to win, but I think we can win 4 of them, personally. I think they're really, really good games. And then the rest of the games, I think we've got Palace away, we've got Spurs away, who were pretty crap. We've got a few other games, and you just win one of them away games, and then you need to win 50% of them games. If we beat Forest on Friday, we'll be in a brilliant position. We really will. In New York, they lost all once the T changed from Red Bull, New York Red Bull. Is DCL injured? I heard it on The View. No, he's not. There's a rumour going around that he's got a thigh injury, but I think Graham basically nonsensed it on Twitter. Also, with a lot of this, Roger, naturally, Fark's press conference is on Wednesday, so we'll get a clearer indication about all that Wednesday. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, people. Thanks for watching, as always. As I said, if you could help the channel by dropping like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I don't think this is going to be the most liked video I've ever done, in truth, because I'm not spinning the line that everybody else thinks, and that's absolutely fine, that sort of this has been an absolute disaster and we're definitely getting relegated. I don't believe that, is my honest feeling. I bought into that in the summer. I'm not going to buy into it again. But as I said, I've been on a different side a few things this year in terms of Daniel Farke, etc. So, you know, yeah. Anyway, I'll get into a few more comments and then I'll wrap it up. Ironically, West Ham are more afraid of our home matches than we are. Yeah, true. If Granit Xhaka is out of the Sunderland match, they are not so effective. Agreed. They're pretty rubbish about them, aren't they? Only sign this window being Facundo, who was meant to come in the summer. Something tells me Farke isn't the board's man going forward. I've seen this a lot on Twitter, Ollie. I don't think that's an indication, mate. I think the window's more of an indication of the fact that we don't have any money. And I also think that there's naturally, I think, kind of the opposite, Ollie, as well, because why would we do a Strand Larsen signing, which is a summer signing, move forward, if they don't plan on continuing with the Farke in the summer onwards? Do you know what I mean? Why would we do that? We're bringing a summer signing forwards. Why would we do that? Anyway, thanks all for watching. As always, as I said, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help. We're back tomorrow at 8 PM. And finally, we'll be able to talk about something that isn't transfers, which will be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's show, actually, because we've done transfers. We can get back to the footy, which truthfully is what all these signs are about. So please join me again tomorrow at 8 PM. And we're going to be going all live as usual, 8 PM this week. So I'll see you then. As I said, thanks for watching. And unfortunately, I couldn't provide a better window for Leeds United. See you later, everybody. Bye for now.